The situation out there is definitely degrading. We have a lot of people out there trying to start World War III, it seems like. When you look at their actions in Washington, D.C. and in Europe, it's hard to come to any other conclusion but that the fact they want World War III. They're definitely trying to provoke it. We just had this $95 billion package that just passed through Congress, and it is going to be approved, of course, because spending money at the pig trough is definitely the one thing that both Democrats and Republicans apparently can agree on. So with World War III on the almost inevitable coming right at us, we have a lot of thoughts that we think about, and I just want to bring up 5 discussion points for you. And you may disagree with me, and you'll be like, Steve, you're way off base. It's not going to be like that at all. Well, then please do comment down in the description, in the comments down below. Let's have a conversation. I'm going to bring up, instead of 5 points, like I'm right and you're wrong kind of thing. You know, some of you guys have a lot more life experience than me. So let's have a conversation about these 5 things. But my first thought here on the Poplar report is that a lot of people think that they won't be affected. That's what I believe is a misconception, is that they think that there's going to be World War III, and by and large, it's going to be a war that happens over there with experiences like Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq again, Syria, Iraq again. Anyway, people think that, or at least they feel like, that it's going to be a war that happens over there. You know, it's going to be fought over in China. It's going to be fought wherever. But I think that we're living in a new world where our adversaries can reach around the globe and they can touch us back at home. And these countries are kind of done with the United States reaching around the world and touching them. They're going to hit back. And I think that that's what China is doing with the burrowing into the infrastructure with cyber warfare. China is also very much advocating and pushing people across our border. And I believe that they're using blackmail as well as their influence in order to use our politicians to keep the border open. I know we keep looking at a certain party and saying those guys are the ones doing this and they're doing it for political purposes, but maybe they're actually puppets on the string and China's really doing this. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about that. But do you think that we will be unaffected by World War III? Do you think it's going to be just kind of like more of the same at home and we're just going to be spending more money, and sure, some people are going to have to go overseas and fight and stuff like that, but we're going to be unaffected back home? Or do you think it's really going to come down to the home front? Do we see mushroom clouds on the horizon? Do we see an EMP knocking out power grids? Do we see cyber attacks taking down our infrastructure, our water supply, our power grid, our internet? Is it going to come home and hit us deeply at home? Because if it is, I don't think people are taking it nearly serious enough. People generally seem to think that World War III is going to happen soon, but they seem to generally not be doing anything about it. And I think that that is the base case, is that I don't think there's going to be like troops, you know, parachuting out of the airplane and landing in the United States. I think it's going to be more like long-range missiles, cyber attacks, disruption of our supply chains, making it so that we basically are going to struggle all day long, every day, just trying to find food and to keep ourselves safe and healthy, not from an enemy, but rather from disease and from people who are unprepared, having to defend ourselves not against the Chinese, but against other Americans. Number 2. So the first is that we won't be affected. That I believe that is a misconception. Number 2, that we won't be swept up in it. That we'll somehow be like not emotionally affected by what happens. I look back through history and it seems like the emotional fervor that countries get swept up in, you know, even if you look back at like the invasion of Iraq and Afghanistan after 9/11, even the Gulf War, when when nations go to war, people get very patriotic. They start really seeing things in black and white. And of course, our country is always clean and right. And people tend to think of that way. Countries that we're fighting against tend to think of themselves as like they're the ones who are right. So if we get into World War III, and if it is protracted in any shape or form, I think that we're going to be emotionally affected by it. We're going to be very invested, not only because we live here and we're going to be affected by losing if we lose or winning if we win, but I don't think we're going to be as dispassionate as people seem to think we will be. Let me know. Am I misreading people? Do you think that people will be like, you know, we're not really on board with this whole World War III thing? Or do you think people will be kind of swept up in it? And whether you need to answer this question by looking at your neighbors and talking about other people that are similar to you, but, you know, there's still other people, or whether you can kind of look at yourself and say, you know, if another country did something really bad to us, you know, if they dropped a nuke on one of our military bases, you know, I'd be like, let's go get them. You know, let's do what we got to do to go get them because they shouldn't have done that to us. Or will you kind of be sitting back and going, this isn't my fight. This, you know, I just want to stay out of it. So I think that we will probably get swept up in it. I mean, it's going to be hard not to, I think. And I think most people will. That's number 2. Number 3, that we will have a warning. I think that's a misconception. In this day and age, I think that what will happen fast. I think it will be like Pearl Harbor, but instead of hitting one military base, they projected their power around the world to hit us at Pearl Harbor. I think that if China launches a surprise attack or Russia launches a surprise attack against the United States, they could potentially take down our defenses in a matter of minutes. And I think that that's a really big deal. I've been talking about the hypersonic missiles that Russia has been developing, and I think they've probably been sharing that technology with China, though we haven't seen quite as much from China with regards to that testing-wise. But these hypersonic missiles tipped with nuclear weapons on long-range bombers can launch from outside our air identification zone above Canada. Before we would even launch fighters to go see who these people are that are coming our way, they could launch those missiles, and those missiles could be over our nuclear weapons sites in South Dakota, North Dakota, and all those areas, even down to Colorado, between 10 to 20 minutes. Over the northern sites in about 10 to 12 minutes, and down towards Colorado, I crunched the numbers a while back. It would take as long as 20 minutes for them to be over our sites. And if they take out our nuclear weapon sites, we wouldn't have anything to shoot back with from our land. And then our air bases are relatively easy to attack. Then it really just leaves up our nuclear weapons missile subs, our Ohio ballistic missile subs. I think that Russia and China are setting the stage so that they can launch a surprise attack and destroy our nuclear triad. And if they do that, we will be defenseless. Okay, we got aircraft carriers and soldiers and everything like that, but they'll still have nukes. And we won't be able to fight that. So that's one scenario. Or whether they launch a massive cyber attack or an EMP attack against the continental United States and basically wipe out our economy all in one swift blow. I think that World War III is probably not going to be a big lead up to. We're not going to see it coming. It's just going to happen. Boom. Lights out. And if it is nuclear attacks against our missile sites and everything like that, our cities will probably be pretty unscathed. And so it will really be just an economic destruction if we're forced to pay reparations. Our economy would be completely in ruins. And even if our infrastructure is still intact, or if our infrastructure is completely destroyed, we're going to be going back to the frontier days pretty darn fast. That's my third point. Let me know down in the comments what you think about that. And if you're talking about these points, you might want to put the number on there so that other people know which one you're talking about. 4. Some people think that this just won't be survivable. That everyone will just be dead or something like that. That World War III happens, it's just over. And so there's no sense in preparing for it. And, I think that's just quitter talk, for one. And number two, I don't think that they really understand the blast radius of nuclear weapons. Even if our cities get attacked, nuclear fallout is something that's variable, and it's not as bad as a lot of people think. I mean, in some ways it's really bad, but in other ways, when you realize how big the United States is, when you start looking at how big the world is, you'll see that that radiation will actually get dispersed pretty heavily all over the place, and as it gets dispersed, it won't cause nearly as much damage. Chernobyl blew up, and it just threw all sorts of garbage all over Europe. And apart from the areas in the immediate area, a lot of the outer areas and across Europe were not really that affected by it. So, and also we're talking about nuclear weapons are probably going to be air burst, which will put out a lot less radiation. If it hits the ground, if the fireball hits the ground, that's when you get a lot more radiation. And normally, if you're trying to cause mass damage, you do it up in the air, so you wouldn't really have as much radioactive fallout. So I think it will be mostly survivable. I think that if you're prepared, it'll be survivable. But when the lights go out, will you be able to eat? Will you be able to cook your food? Will you be able to get more food? Will you be able to get water, clean water? I think that the disease and people who are unprepared will be super dangerous. So if you're prepared, I think it's survivable. If you're unprepared, it's going to be very difficult. That's my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments down below. I know this is a little bit different of a format, but let's get to number 5 here. Some people think that World War III will fix what's wrong. And I think there's that idea that this reset will reset things and we'll start back off again as, like we were in 1776. Everyone will get patriotic again. The bad people will be dealt with. And so all the good moral people will come out and everything will return to the way it was, before we were born. And I don't think that is historically likely. Generally speaking, apart from a giant spiritual revival that takes us back to the beliefs and faith and the culture of the 1770s, I think that we will see that just like the French Revolution, they had a revolution too, but they just went into this death spiral, and it took them a long time to come out of that. They just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper. The Russian Revolution, same kind of thing. A lot of times, that's what happens, is a revolution or a world war doesn't make things better. It just makes things worse. It makes people poorer. It makes people more desperate. In some ways, it may set the stage for a revival spiritually or for sensible thinking, but a lot of damage gets done, and it makes things very difficult. And hard times don't make good times necessarily, but it does make survivors, and it makes hard people. But hard people can do some pretty awful things. And so hard people don't necessarily always bring good times for everybody. Sometimes they bring good times for themselves. Sometimes they just make things worse. And I think that that's something I would challenge people to look at history. We have this perspective from 1776 that wow, that's what we need again. But I don't think people realize how unique and really odd 1776 was. Everyone was very surprised when it happened like that. People were like, wow, what happened here? And people were astonished that there could be a society that could function like that. And the world was shocked. And rightly so, because something like this just really hadn't happened before. It was a unique experiment. And it wasn't because we just did everything right. It was because the people had character, hard work, drive, and also the religion of the churches in America, and God's blessing upon the land, I believe. Tocqueville did a survey, and that was his conclusion. Why the American experiment had kind of succeeded so far was because of American churches. The democracy in American churches translated into basically the republic drew its strength from the churches. And so that's kind of, I don't think that a civil war or World War III will necessarily fix our problems. I think it could just make our problems way worse in different ways. And it may fix some things, but I think by and large, it may just make things worse. Let me know what you guys think about those 5 points. 1, that we won't be affected. 2, that we won't be swept up in the emotion of it all. Number 3, that we will have some kind of warning before it happens. That won't be sudden. Number 4, that it won't be survivable. And number 5, that it will somehow fix what's wrong. I think that all of those points are wrong. For clarification, once again, those are things that I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on that. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to check out another video from this channel, there's one right up here. I'll see you over there, or I'll see you guys later. Steve Poplar of the Poplar Report, out.